The sound of the refrigerator door clicking shut echoed through the marble kitchen like a gunshot. "Get out." The words were cold, sharp, and final. Maria froze, her hand still resting on the steel handle, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Across the vast kitchen stood Victor Langford, the billionaire everyone admired, the man whose name crowns skyscrapers and charities alike. His tailored suit looked out of place against the warmth of the morning light, but his eyes were harder than the granite countertops surrounding them. "I trusted you," Victor said, his voice tight with anger. "You had one rule. One. Don't touch my personal things." I'm sorry, sir," Maria whispered, lowering her eyes. Her English stumbled when fear took hold, but she forced the words out. "I wasn't stealing. I don't want excuses," he snapped. "Pack your things. Security will escort you." The fridge hummed quietly behind her, indifferent to the moment that was breaking her life apart. Maria nodded. She had learned long ago that arguing with powerful men only made things worse. She removed her apron with trembling fingers, folded it neatly on the counter, and walked out without another word. Victor watched her go, his chest tight, his jaw clenched. For a brief second, something flickered across his face, doubt, maybe, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He told himself he had done the right thing. Boundaries mattered. Respect mattered. And yet, as the front door closed behind her, the mansion felt colder than it ever had. Victor Langford hadn't grown up rich. He'd grown up hungry. That was the irony no one knew. He'd built an empire from nothing, late nights, ruthless decisions, sacrifices he never spoke about. Somewhere along the way, hunger had transformed from an empty stomach into an obsession with control. His house ran on rules. His staff followed them precisely. Order was safety. Maria had broken that order. That night, Victor stood alone in the kitchen, swirling a glass of water he didn't drink. The fridge caught his attention again. He frowned, replaying the moment in his mind. Maria wasn't careless. In the 2 years she'd worked for him, she'd been quiet, punctual, almost invisible. She cleaned his office with reverence, folded his clothes with precision, and never once complained. Why would she risk everything for a fridge? Annoyed at his own thoughts, Victor opened it. The shelves were mostly untouched, organic meals delivered daily, expensive ingredients he barely used. But something was different. On the lower shelf, behind imported cheeses and neatly stacked containers, sat a small plastic box. It didn't belong. Victor pulled it out. Inside were 3 boiled eggs, peeled and sprinkled with salt, wrapped carefully in a paper napkin. No label, no brand, just simple food. His chest tightened. Maria didn't eat his food. He was sure of that. He'd made that rule clear on her first day. Then why were the eggs there? Victor's phone buzzed on the counter. A message from his assistant reminded him of a charity gala the next evening, Children's Hunger Relief Fund. The irony burned. Maria walked home in silence. Her apartment was small, the walls thin, the stairs uneven, but it was hers. She removed her shoes, sank onto the couch, and finally let the tears fall. Losing this job wasn't just about pride. It was about rent, about medicine, about her son, Luis. She wiped her face and stood, walking into the tiny kitchen. The fridge there was nearly empty, just a half carton of milk and a bag of rice. She opened a drawer and took out a photo taped inside. Luis smiled back at her, gap-toothed and bright-eyed, holding up a crayon drawing of the two of them. He was 9 years old, thin for his age, and far too brave. "Don't worry, Mama," he'd said that morning before school. "I'm strong." He shouldn't have to be. The next day, Victor couldn't concentrate. Meetings blurred together. Numbers lost meaning. Maria's face kept intruding into his thoughts, not fearful, but tired. Deeply tired. On impulse, he called the head of security. "Why did Maria open the fridge yesterday?" he asked. There was a pause. "Sir, she usually doesn't. I've noticed she brings her own food." Victor's grip tightened on the phone. "That's not what I asked." Another pause. Then, quieter, she checks it sometimes at the end of her shift." "Checks it for what?" "For leftovers, sir." Victor's heart skipped. "Leftovers?" "Yes. She never takes anything. She just looks." The line went dead. Victor sat back, his mind racing. Leftovers. He thought of the eggs. That evening, Victor drove himself somewhere he hadn't been in years, a public hospital on the east side of the city. He didn't know why he went. Only that something pulled him there. At the front desk, he hesitated before asking, "Is there a patient named Luis Herrera?" The nurse glanced at her screen. "Yes. Pediatric ward. Room 312. Victor felt something twist painfully in his chest. Room 312 was dim, filled with the soft beeping of machines. On the bed lay a small boy, pale but smiling, holding a comic book. Beside him sat Maria, her face drawn but gentle as she brushed his hair back. Victor stood frozen in the doorway. Maria looked up, and her eyes widened in shock. "Sir," she whispered, standing abruptly. Fear flashed across her face. "I didn't steal. I swear." "Please," Victor said hoarsely. "I know." She stopped. Luis looked between them, confused. "Mama, who's that?" Maria swallowed. "My employer." Victor stepped closer, his voice trembling despite himself. "I fired you yesterday for opening my fridge." Luis frowned. "But Mama just checks it." Victor knelt beside the bed, his knees hitting the floor hard. "Checks it for what, son?" Luis hesitated, then spoke plainly. "For food that people don't want. So I can eat eggs. Eggs help me feel strong." Victor couldn't breathe. Maria covered her mouth, tears spilling over. "I didn't want him to know," she said softly. "He doesn't complain. He never asks. But his treatment makes him weak. Protein helps. I just wanted to see if there was anything going to waste." Victor felt something inside him crack wide open. All those years ago, he'd been that boy. Counting bites. Pretending hunger didn't hurt. And he'd punished her for surviving. Victor cried. Not quietly. Not politely. He cried the way people do when a lifetime of walls finally collapse. His shoulders shook, his hands covered his face, and the weight of his mistake crushed him. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I was wrong. I was cruel." Maria knelt beside him, startled, unsure what to do. "Sir, please." "No," he said, looking up at her with red, broken eyes. "Please. Forgive me." The next weeks changed everything. Victor paid for Luis's treatment in full, quietly, without publicity. He rehired Maria, doubling her salary, but more importantly, he changed the rules. His kitchen became open, his house warmer, his heart softer. At the next charity gala, Victor spoke honestly for the first time in his life. "Hunger doesn't always look like poverty," he said into the microphone. "Sometimes it looks like dignity. Like a mother checking a fridge, not to steal, but to hope." Maria watched from the back of the room, holding Luis's hand. Victor caught her eye and smiled. The billionaire who once fired a maid for opening a fridge had learned the truth too late, but not too late to change. And sometimes, the smallest acts, 3 boiled eggs wrapped in a napkin, are the ones that remind us what being human really means.